Number 16. Number 16 is determination of our vital signs. So number 1, our objectives class sa paggawa nitong activities to acquire skills on how to properly obtain the vital signs, and most importantly, to interpret accurately the results obtained during the determination of the vital signs. So, ano ba yung vital signs? They are actually measures of our physiological statistics that are essential in the assessment of basic body functions. So basically, when you say vital signs, we have numerical data here. Physiologically so we obtain that one sa body, and these vital signs will help us determine whether our body is properly functioning or not. So what are the vital signs that we measure in the medical setting? So syempre we have here body temperature, the pulse or the heart rate, PR or HR, the respiratory rate, and the blood pressure. So again, in medical setting, these are the 4 vital signs that we mostly measure just to determine whether the patient's body is properly functioning or not. Okay, so especially in medical cases or emergency cases, that's the first thing that they are going to do, measure the vital signs para alam nila kung okay pa ba yung patient or hindi. So starting from the body temperature, when you say body temperature, this will give us, or this will measure our body's ability to generate and at the same time get rid of heat or energy inside. Okay, so our body class has its own ability to regulate the body temperature. So paano? Number 1, if the body is too hot, again, if the body is too hot, what will our body do? The body will constrict, or sorry, dilate the blood vessels. Again, the body will regulate it through dilating the blood vessels to carry the excess heat into the skin's surface. So again, pag masyadong mainit sa loob ng katawan natin, ang mangyayari, i-dilate yung mga blood vessels para yung init sa loob will go out, mapupunta siya sa skin surface natin. Okay, so the process involves sweating, evaporation, and at the same time, cooling. Pag napunta na kasi siya sa skin surface natin, ayun, magsusweat na tayo, and then the sweat will evaporate, and then after that, there will be a cooling process. That is to regulate para bababa yung body temperature. Na paano kung baliktad? If the body is too cold, baliktad din siya. The blood vessel will be constricted para ang heat hindi siya lalabas. Okay? Ma-conserve yung heat inside. So the process involves naman shivering, which is class involuntary, and at the same time, syempre when you shiver, there is uncontrollable or rapid na muscle movement to generate more heat. Okay, so under normal conditions, this will leave the body temperature within a narrow or safe range. So kaya kayong giniginaw ka nga class, pag giniginaw ka, ang mangyayari sa'yo, yung blood vessels mo inside, magko-constrict yan siya para hindi makalabas yung heat, magsistay siya inside. And at the same time, pag giniginaw ka, talaga siya, automatic na response ng body na magkurog ka, there will be shivering. Ano ang reason bakit mag-shiver ka? That is to produce more heat or generate more heat inside kasi nga masyadong mababa yung temperature inside the body. Okay? So that is the reason. Pag excessive naman, kung excessive naman ang heat inside, ilalabas yun siya ng body through dilating the blood vessels, and that is the time you sweat. Okay, just like when you do like vigorous exercise, there will be a lot of heat inside. Syempre kasi you are like producing a lot of ATPs, using your energy. So maraming masyadong heat inside, masyadong mainit. Kaya ilalabas yun siya ng body through sweating. And after sweating, there will be cooling down of your body temperature. Okay? Do you have questions or clarifications? Wala. So how do we measure our body temperature? We can measure our body temperature using the following parts of the body. You can measure it through the mouth, the ear. Most of the time, we do that through the armpit. Others measure it through the rectum, especially for children. And then we have the forehead. So what's our normal body temperature? Our normal body temperature orally is 37 plus and minus 0.6 degrees Celsius. Paano mag-generate heat atong body? Through shivering class. Kung too cold, sample gitugnaw ka, too cold class ang imuhang body temperature, your body will really push your muscles to contract rapidly, and that's how you produce heat para mag-init siya sa loob. So that's a normal reaction na pag tugnawon ka, kurugon jud ka. Okay? So again, the normal body temperature, this one is an oral temperature, has a 37 plus and minus 0.6. So that will be 36.4 to 37.6 throughout the day. So depending yan siya on how active you are. Kung marami kang ginagawa, syempre tataas yan siya. Pag wala, and then yung environment mo is maginaw, syempre bababa din yung temperature mo. Okay, so again, this is for the oral temperature. For rectal or axillary or ear or tympanic membrane temperature reading, it is 0.3 to 0.6 degrees Celsius higher than normal or than the oral temperature reading. So let's just use degrees Celsius kasi ito yung common sa atin. Well, sa America or sa other places, they use degrees Fahrenheit. Pero sa atin, degrees Celsius yan siya. So you expect class na mas mataas ang reading ng sa rectal, axillary, or sa ear na temperature compared if you do the measurement using oral reading. Okay? So, pag there is elevated body temperature, we call that pyresis class. Siyempre, ang person merong fever. But fever is not really a disease. It will just tell you class. Symptom lang siya ng sakit. It will just tell you that there is something wrong in your body. So, what are the causes of fever? You may have infection. That is why tumaas yung body temperature mo. There are also medicines that can increase your body temperature. Example, atropine. Atropine can actually cause drug fever, especially sa mga bata. So pag binigyan mo sila ng atropine, mag-fever sila. Tataas yung body temp. Severe trauma or injury can also elevate the body temperature and other medical conditions. So how do we check our body temp? You have to wait at least 20 to 30 minutes after smoking, eating, or drinking, especially if you drink hot or cold liquid. Hindi siya pwedeng diretso na nag-smoke ka, nag-exercise ka ng grabe, kumain ka or uminom ka ng something, tapos mag-check ka agad ng temperature. There will really be variations in your body temperature. So you really have to wait. You have to relax first. Or kung exercise, vigorous exercise naman, or yung naligo ka, whether cold or hot bath, after an hour ka pa mag-check ng body temperature mo. Nevertheless, pag hindi mo naman ginawa ito, pwede ka nang mag-check diretso ng body temperature mo. Now, syempre, when we check our body temperature, we use thermometer. So, we have, ito yung pinaka-common ngayon, the electronic thermometer. Alam naman natin lahat paano gumamit nito, diba? Okay, pero this is just in Fahrenheit. Our thermometers here sa Philippines is mostly naka-degrees Celsius. And then we have a lot of this also, especially during the pandemic, the ear, or we call that the tympanic thermometer. Okay, and then we also have forehead thermometers class na Maraming yan sa mall and sa other parts yung COVID din. Meron din yung sa infant na ilalagay siya sa forehead tapos magkakaroon siya ng color and then depende sa color mababasa na kung anong temperature. So ito ginagamit to siya sa mga bata, this type of the forehead thermometer. Ito kasi naging digital na siya pero forehead thermometer pa rin. And then we also have the so-called disposable thermometers, but these are not common here in the Philippines. Okay? Para din siyang pH meter strips na 'di ba pag i-dip mo siya in the solution, there will be changes in the color ng box in the pH meter strip. And then from there, you have to compare it doon sa parang standard niya. And then makikita mo kung ano yung pH. Ganun din yung sa disposable thermometer. So mag-iiba din ang color niyan. And then you can see kung ano yung temperature ng patient. And then this one is for the babies. We have pacifier thermometer. So most likely this one is already taken, that temperature. Pero it's like a pacifier. Okay. Do you have questions about measuring the body temperature? Wala. Sure. Sige. So your attendance and participation for Wednesday will be during the FDA seminar. Do not forget that basig malate mo, oras mo abot sa school. 7:30 yung klase natin by that time. So 7:30 andito na rin kayo sa school. Okay? So wala nang question sa body temperature. Let's move on sa blood pressure. Okay, so si blood pressure, you know this very well. It's the pressure, it's the force exerted by the blood against the wall of your blood vessels, especially our arteries. And this will actually measure the amount of force or energy needed for our blood to flow. So there, sa pharmacology lec, we have already discussed this one. Maraming nagdi-dictate, nagre-regulate ng ating blood pressure. Then we have determinants of our blood pressure also. Just like our heart rate, if there is a change in the heart rate, there will also be a change in our blood pressure. Or if you have problems with your arteries, with your blood vessels, pwedeng maapektuhan din ang blood pressure class. Okay? Especially if the blood pressure becomes stiff or if there are obstructions like deposition of atherosclerotic plaques. Syempre tataas yung blood pressure by that time. And the blood itself will also affect the blood pressure, especially if you have a lot of blood, like in the case of osmosis during too much intake of salt. So syempre yung sodium will go to the blood vessel and then water will follow, di ba? Osmosis ang tawag natin dyan. And then you will have increased blood volume. And because you have an increased blood volume, that would mean also an increase in the blood pressure. Kasi kailangan mo ng mas malaking force, mas malaking energy para mag-flow yung napakaraming blood. And the viscosity of blood also. So just like in the case of diabetic people or patient wherein they have a mataas na viscosity ng kanilang blood because of the presence of too much sugar, that will also lead to the change in the blood pressure. Okay, and other health condition pa. Age of the person may also affect blood pressure kasi as we age class, nagde-deteriorate din ang function ng ating heart, nagsistiff din yung ating mga blood vessels. So like normally, pag tumataas yung age, tumataas din ang risk natin for an increased blood pressure. And other physical condition depende. Kasi may mga condition tayo that will also affect our BP. Now, we have two components of our blood pressure. We have systole and diastole, or the systole or the diastole. Now, pag mataas kasi yung systolic pressure natin, meron tayong problem yan with the contraction of the heart itself. Kasi when you say systole, it is when our heart the heart muscle contracts to pump blood. That's the systole. Okay, so the systolic pressure will measure that capacity. Now, si diastole naman sa baba, we call that the resting pressure kasi that will measure the time wherein our heart relaxes. And pag nag-relax yan kasi siya, mag-stretch yung mga muscle fibers, and that is when the blood will enter the heart. Okay, so baliktad silang dalawa. Sa taas yung systole, sa baba yung diastole. Now, I believe you have memorized this already. This is our blood pressure classification. Remember, one of the objectives of this activity is for you to be familiar, or for you to be able to interpret results in the measurement of the vital signs. It's not just about your blood pressure is 110/80 and then that's it. You have to be able to interpret those numbers also. Okay, so balikan nyo ito, and then syempre lalabas pa rin siya sa laboratory exam natin. So I'll be giving you numbers for the blood pressure, and then you have to properly classify them. Okay, whether the patient has a normal BP or hindi pa siya talaga hypertensive but pre-hypertensive na, and so on. Okay, now how about the device we use in the measurement of our blood pressure? Yung ginagamit talaga natin, it's the sphygmomanometer. Pwedeng aneroid, yung manual, and then yung nagamit na mostly ngayon is the electronic one. Actually, when we did the activity last time in the room sa second floor, we used the electronic sphygmomanometer. And then we have the stethoscope in partnership with the aneroid sphygmomanometer for you to be able to hear the pulse. I mean yung titik na tinatawag. Okay, for the systole and the diastole. Okay, and then number 3, for our vital signs, we have the pulse rate. So ano naman itong pulse rate? Nafi-feel talaga natin yan siya, class, in different parts of our body, and that actually represents the physically talaga nag-e-expand yung artery na hinahawakan mo. Sample dito sa pulse mo talaga, na dito sa tawag dito. Nakalimutan ko. Dito na part. So pag nahawakan mo yung artery na yan, pumipitik yan siya, class, kasi nag-e-expand yung artery. Okay? Yung blood vessel sa wrist pala. Pero meron din sa ankle, meron din sa other parts ng ating body. Okay? So we measure that one and we record that one as beats per minute or BPM. Okay? So si pulse rate actually represents the heart rate. Kasi when the heart contracts, yung mga blood vessels dyan nag-e-expand to accommodate the blood. Okay? So kaya magkaparehas lang yung pulse rate and yung heart rate. So ito yung mga sites where we take our pulse rate class. Most of the time, we do that in our wrist. Ano yung meron sa wrist natin? That's our radial artery. So yung nasa open and close parenthesis, yan yung pangalan ng blood vessel na hinahawakan natin, for example, sa wrist. Okay? And then sa elbow, not here, dito sa, dito sa, anong part yan? Sa harap, hindi sa likod. We have the brachial artery there, and then sa neck, pwede din namang hanapin nyo yung carotid artery behind the knee also, but that is actually unusual. We don't do that most of the time. Ano lang for special cases. So you have the popliteal artery there, and then sa foot also meron, sa paa. So we have the dorsalis pedis, or yung posterior tibial artery natin. And then we can also measure directly sa heart natin. Remember, parehas lang naman yung pulse rate and yung heart rate. We may do that using a stethoscope. Okay? Questions or clarifications regarding this one? Wala. Now, we have here the respiratory rate or the RR. We also call this respiration rate or pulmonary ventilation rate or ventilation rate lang talaga or breathing frequency or BF. Ito yung number of paghinga natin. Okay? Sige. And then we measure that also as BPM pero this time it's breath per minute. Ito yung i-memorize na to ni siya ha. Mani siya normal heart rate and pulse rate here, beats per minute. You know that 60 to 100 tayo ha kasi adults na tayo, 14 and above years old. Yung mga babies, medyo mas mataas yung kanilang heart rate and pulse rate. And that is also true for the respiration rate. Mas mabilis yung kanilang paghinga kaysa sa atin adults. Okay? Okay. Pero adults, please take note, 12 to 20, I wasn't able to see your results when you did this activity, but I hope na yung classmate nyo na kinuhanan yun ng respiratory rate, normal respiratory rate nila ha, 12 to 20, basig nag-hyperventilate na din ha. Wala. Itong PowerPoint presentation ko, hindi pa. Hindi pa siya na-post. Okay? Questions or clarifications before we'll move on to the guide questions? I cannot finish the activity number 17. I'll just record myself na lang sa activity number 17. And if you have questions, I'll cater that before the exam on Wednesday. Wala. So how do clinical thermometers differ from each other? Let's go back to our, kay konti pa lang yung na-record ko dito. Yung iba, walang participation. Oh yeah, I'll give you the PPT. Who wants to answer number 1? How do clinical thermometers differ from each other? Madali lang ito na question. You can answer this one. Ano ba yung observe nyo sa different thermometers that we have? Who wants to answer first? You can raise your hand and then you can unmute your microphone. Wala. Yes, Sheila.
Try lang, ma'am.
Go.
Ang difference nila sa mga thermometer from each other, ma'am, is yung example man gud noon, ma'am, meron kasing manual talaga na thermometer. Yung
Yes.
pinakauna. Ngayon kasi mas high-tech na siya. The next thermometer is yung napansin ko is yung thermometer na yung aside pa doon sa digital, meron siyang yung kanina good ma'am, yung number 2 ata yun sa slide mo na thermometer. Siya ang next na ko. Then ngayon kasi talagang nag-evolve na yung high-tech na siya masyado. Meron ng digital.
Yes.
So, iba-iba na talaga siya. So, yun ang difference nila na habang tumatagal, lalong siya, nag-upgrade po ang
technology.
results.
Okay, very good. Sige, so yung thermometer na usually ginagamit natin dati is actually a mercury thermometer. So yung nagme-measure, yung nag-up and down, nakikita natin is mercury yun siya. However, syempre, di ba, you know that mercury is a cumulative poison. Cumulative meaning it has to accumulate first inside the body before you will experience the signs and symptoms of the toxicity. So, mahirap yun siya, especially pag nabasag yung thermometer. And then, remember that mercury is included in our volatile na mga metals. Nag-volatilize sila even at room temperature. So, even if you don't hold the mercury during spillage, pwedeng mapunta pa rin siya sa body natin. So, nag-evolve na yung mga thermometers natin. We have a lot of digital thermometers nowadays. And iba-iba sila ng parts in the body where they measure the temperature. Some are ear thermometers, yung iba rectal, yung iba sa armpit, and so on. So yan yung difference ng ating mga available thermometers nowadays. Mercury sa thermometer and mercury gamit sa mining. I'm not very familiar with the mercury used sa mining, no? But I think that's the same mercury kasi si mercury is sensitive to heat. That is why ginagamit siya dati for thermometer. Ang reason lang talaga na hindi na siya ginagamit ngayon is yung kanyang toxicity. But I don't know kung ano ang gamit niya sa mining kasi. Yes, Charles. Ay, sino yun? Si Carl, yung nag-raise ng hand.
Pwede pa magdawag, ma'am.
Yes, go.
Ang iba-iba na thermometer, ma'am, is mura tong gamay na thermometer gina-measure lang niya in between human body temperature, nagka-rise lang or kuan. Kung masubra na siya temperature, mag-indicate na siya high na lang. So wala na gina-indicate kung taas yung kayo. Iba na pong thermometer like sa water bath or something na ma'am naman siya mag-thermometer niya. Indicate yun niya sa katasaan na yung temperature.
Yeah. Okay. Sige. So do not forget that we also have the so-called laboratory thermometer. Actually, they are still made up of mercury. So yung mukha nila kagaya pa rin ng usual thermometer natin dati. Kaya lang it is suitable to measure very high temperature. So umaabot pa ng 100 and more than that. So yan yung isa sa kaibahan ng mga existing thermometers natin. Okay? Sige, very good. Number 2, what are the importance of determining an individual's vital sign? Yes, Princess. Mode of insertion niya.
Vital signs, ma'am, can provide information about a person's current state of health, and it can also help to identify the potential health problems. Example, ma'am, pag high body temperature, this indicates na yung person meron siyang fever, which could be caused by an infection. Tapos yung high heart rate naman, ma'am, may be indicative of a heart condition. Tapos high blood pressure may also indicates hypertension. Yun lang.
Yes. Okay, very good. Who wants to add something? Joy?
Since ang vital signs po is gina-measure niya po yung body's basic function, so it also plays an important role because in a way na gina-help niya na ma-monitor yung mga medical problems sa body, and since ma-help din siya monitor ng mga body temperature, mga pulse rate, ma-monitor din kung kung normal pa ba or may mga medical problems na po.
Okay, yes, that is also true. And at the same time, measuring the individual's vital sign will help you know whether the person is still alive or not, di ba? Tinitingnan talaga nila una yung pulse, kung meron pa bang pulse or heart rate yung patient. Example, during medical emergency. Example, merong road accident. So, yan yung unang tinitingnan nila. Okay, may respiration pa ba yung patient natin or wala. So, aside from knowing na the body is still functioning well, it will also help you determine whether the person is still alive or not. Okay? So, aside from diurnal variations in body temperature, kaiba kasi yung temperature natin sa gabi at sa umaga class, that's diurnal variation. Siyempre, most likely during the day, mas mataas yung ating body temperature kesa sa gabi. So what are other factors that may cause variation? Who wants to answer this one? Wala gusto mag-answer. Tagay na lagi taas. Tagal laging nitaas yung kamot. Karon wala na. Ay. Kasi na yun? Number 3 pa lang ito. It's almost time. Wala gusto mag-answer.
Ano, ma'am? Ako.
Sige, go.
I'll try, ma'am. Aside from diurnal variations in the body temperature, what other factors may cause variations? Ano, ma'am, environment itself, whether it is cold or hot. And at the same time, ma'am, pwede rin yung emotional stress. Strong emotions may increase temperature, di ba, ma'am? Like
Yes.
extreme anger, crying, like that.
Okay.
Yun, ma'am.
Sige. That is actually correct. What else? Basig may gusto magdagdag. Patricia.
Sa akin, ma'am, kayo mga ano niya, yung parang lifestyle niya, if either nag-drink siya, nag-smoke, nag-drugs.
Yeah.
The way sa lifestyle niya din po, ma'am.
Okay, very good. So the thing that you eat actually can also affect your body temperature, even the drinks, plus whether it is hot or cold. Magbababa or tataas din yung temperature mo. Yes, Syra.
Addition lang, ma'am, is
Tell Syra, dito ka madunggan. Ano to?
in addition lang, ma'am, is ang exercise, ma'am, that will cause increase in voluntary muscle contraction.
Okay, yeah. Aside from the variations during day and night, no, it will also like yung yung pagiging active mo as a person, like if you're doing exercise, syempre tataas or bababa din yan ang temperature natin. Okay. So, no? Yes. Isay.
Hindi ko sure if na-mention na, ma'am, age and stress, ma'am.
Age and stress. Pag stress, daig ka.
Na blood na, ma'am. Sure.
Nahibad na mag-stress. Yeah, pero when it comes to temperature, yeah, pwede din siya. Nasabi siya actually ni Pauline kanina, your emotional, like status can also increase or decrease your body temperature. Exercise, kinakain mo, lahat yan. Yung sa mga patients also, whether they are taking some medication, that may also affect body temperature. So what is the clinical significance of an elevated body temperature, and what causes the thermoregulatory center to be reset to a higher temperature? So nasabi na to kanina, pero sige, para yung iba meron ding scores dito. Wala. Pwede din physical condition, yeah. Physical condition. Kasi hindi tayo pare-pareho ng like during sa sweating, no, may mga taong kahit ang init na hindi pa rin nagsasweat. Yung iba meron talagang hypothermia, no, mababa talaga yung temperature nila. Physical condition also. Yeah, lifestyle. Yes, Riza.
Sabi ni Princess kanina, ma'am, is it could signify if the temperature is mataas, if meron siyang infection, kung may fever, ganyan.
Yes. Pag mataas ang temperature natin, number one, pwedeng meron kang infection. So sabi ko kanina, yung fever is not really a disease. It will just be like a symptom or a sign that there is something wrong in our body. So most of the time, if we have fever, we might have infection. Any kind of infection, bacterial man yan siya or viral infection man yan siya. Okay? And then number two, pwede din, yes, Anali, masing answer na kayo. Gusto din mo mag-answer. Sige, go. Answer man. Answer man eh. Wala dito. So sige, infection ha, o kaya drugs, what else? Other pa na mga conditions sa body, like one of your organ is not functioning well, magre-reset din yan siya to a higher temperature. Yung thermoregulatory center natin, by the way, yung part ng ating body na nagre-regulate ng body temperature is the hypothalamus. Okay? The hypothalamus in our brain. So kapag example may infection, marami yan siyang series of like chemical reactions in the body involved there. May maraming mare-release including our prostaglandins. So si prostaglandin will be one of the chemical messenger that will tell our hypothalamus to reset the body temperature to a higher one in an attempt to get rid of the infection, for example, or to tell you that your body is not normally functioning. Okay, so yeah, it's actually a sign that your body is working to fight against the microorganisms that are not really normally found inside the body. Okay, yeah, yes, Philip, tama din yun siya, respiration. And what are the importance of, yes, what are the importance of identifying the vital signs of your patient?
Ako, ma'am.
Yes, go.
Of identifying the vital sign, ma'am, is dyan malaman if ang patient ba is in good condition or may mga medical problems siya, ma'am. Like kung mataas yung blood pressure, ganun good, ma'am. Mga temperature and pulse rate.
Okay, sige. Jennifer, what else?
So vital signs useful in detecting or monitoring the medical problems of your patient.
Okay. Sige. May gusto magdagdag, Philip?
Yes, ma'am. So it's important to identify the vital signs of your patient generally. Aside from it, ma'am, pwede ka din as a medical professional, pwede ka rin mag-advise ng mga non-pharmaceutical sa kanila. For example, if may high blood sila, to avoid high cholesterol foods. Yan.
Okay, so aside from telling us whether the patient is in good condition or not, kung hindi talaga sila in good condition, pwede din tayong mag-advise sa kanila kung ano yung gagawin to regulate their normal body function, especially sa vital signs nila. And then it will also help us know and decide kung anong gagawin natin sa patient natin. Anong ating parang ang tawag dyan, resolution sa kanilang problem. Last na, 5 minutes lang na extension. List the pharmacologic and non-pharmacologic modalities used in the treatment of an elevated body temperature. Sige, give me one. Kita to, Rosalie, kung wala pa wala pa scores din eh. Yes, Rosalie. Give me one, either pharmacological or non-pharmacologic modality.
Non-pharmacologic ako, ma'am, hydration.
Okay.
Mag-drink og water in order to lose the kay ang ma'am, ang dehydration naga-cause siya fever kay nag-loss kag fluid. So para magbalik ang mo, ma'am, kailangan mo mag-drink og plenty of water para ma-reduce gud ang fever, ma'am.
Okay, sige, that is correct. What else? Sino pa? Meron pa bang hindi naka-recite? Isay? Baka naka-recite?
Naka-recite na, ma'am.
Sige, go.
Non-pharmacologic, ma'am, magbawas ng clothing, char.
Magbawas ng clothing?
Yes, ma'am, para ma-elevate ang body temperature, especially if init kayo.
Okay. Pag init kayo, so syempre dili na ka magsinina, no? Kay musamot ka kainit. What else? Yes, Munir. Bye.
Ma'am, a cool environment po.
Okay,
Keeping the room temperature po.
Pag mataas masyado. Pero kay gitugnaw man ka kung gilagnat ka, charot. so environment. Yes, Queenie.
For pharmacologic, ma'am, possible mag-take ka ng antipyretic drugs po.
Sa example sa antipyretic.
Yung ibuprofen, ma'am, ganyan po.
Okay. Ibuprofen lang? What are the other pharmacologic modalities natin aside from ibuprofen?
Acetaminophen, I think.
Yeah, paracetamol, acetaminophen. Yan lang? Ibuprofen. Paracetamol or acetaminophen, pares lang naman. Yes, Precious.
Resting, ma'am, because it will help your body build up its immune system and fight off your illness.
Okay, sige. Ayan. So do not forget ha, aside from paracetamol, ibuprofen, yung other pa natin na mga NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs are also antipyretic. Aspirin kapag mataas na dose can also be used as an antipyretic, pero hindi pwede sa bata yun ha, sa matatanda lang. Kasi kapag sa bata and then there is viral infection, the patient, the child may experience Reye syndrome. Okay? Yeah, naproxen. Naproxen is a member of the NSAID and ano yan siya. Pwede din siyang gamitin as antipyretic. So last na before tayo mag-end. Yes, Doniza.
Sa non-pharmacologic din po, ma'am.
Okay.
Hot compress pag ginalamig ka. Tapos cold compress din po, ma'am, pag sobra kainit na, ma'am, ang body.
Okay. Sige. I-ano na. Okay, so that's it. We have pharmacologic and non-pharmacologic modalities. Yung iba, di ba, nagatuog da sila. That's actually included sa non-pharmacologic modality na ginagamit if you have elevated body temperature. So that ends activity number 16.